Right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for waiting on us here. I mean, we've got quite bright lights either side, so if anyone wants to sneak out, you can sneak out that way. Anyone wants to make a statement about my presentation, sort of walk out the middle and I'll see you go quite clearly. Yes, I'm going to be talking today about, as it says, digital services and developing those skills. So quick straw poll on there. How many people are familiar with sort of GDS, Government Digital Services? A quick show of hands. So a fair few. And Agile PM, Agile Project Management as a method. There's quite a few as well. Actually, anybody been on the training out of interest and to do a qualification? Oh, you have, okay. So this is possible, you might hopefully recognize some of these. So I'm Peter Stansbury, sort of Agile coach, consultant, and also lead author on the new Agile Digital Services training course. It's a journey that started out, from my point of view, at the Ministry of Justice, delivering Agile PM training that was widely seen as, a widely recognized, accredited Agile training methodology that seemed to fit really well together with the whole idea of .gov.uk, GDS digital delivery. It recognized the concept of projects. It recognized Agile, indirectly recognized digital. That was the great idea. It was recommended, taken up by a lot of people, and those who've been on the course probably recognize this pain. Actually, quite quickly became apparent. It was almost like it was one versus the other, even though they're the same. I mean, one good example really was the life cycle. Agile PM has its project life cycle on there. GDS, as Mariangela showed us a moment ago, has its own life cycle. First of all, they look really different. Even worse than that, if you do like a word search on it, there's not one single word in common on there, which is not great for a training day on there. And that was just the beginning. What we found, because it's accredited, you do your training course at the exam at the end, you have to do the exam. And so we start with a life cycle. I'm teaching people to say, well, this life cycle, learn it for today, this week, then throw it away, go back to your day job, do it differently. Roles and responsibilities. We have a different set of roles for the two. Learn these ones for your day job, learn these ones through exam. Throw those away. User research. I mean, GDS does great stuff around user-centered design, user research. Agile PM doesn't even talk about the user. They say focus on the business need, but don't talk about the users. So there's a whole thing around user research, work products, how we document them, all of these things turned into that exam nightmare. People, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the concept of test-driven development at all in there, but don't have to be. This is a version of what I call frustration-driven development, where we looked at that. It was driving everybody mad, calling my sympathy. The end goal was to have happy people at the end, come out with the exam certificate, have developed the skills, have learned something useful, learned something applicable. Seemed like a great idea, but how do we know whether or not this is a great idea? Well, here's one good idea that Agile PM never taught us. Do some user research. So we actually brought in outsiders, Future Gov, to do user research, talk to our users. It's quite unnerving. You run a course and you used to kind of give people a sheet, they just tick a box. Hey, I was okay at that course. This time you have to walk them into a room and say, this person's going to talk to you for an hour and in detail about the course you run. It was really useful feedback. We tested concepts with them. They watched Lego being played. You have to do Lego on these courses, I think, don't you? It's agile, it's lean. And worked out the outcome of this research in true GDS style. Are we looking to build the right thing? Is this something that people want? Clearly, people said yes, they did want to develop these skills. They did want certificates. They did want the accreditation out of that. And they did want it to work properly, not to get their level of pain. The other thing we discovered, actually, was really good bits, no surprises here, to both approaches. GDS, in their wisdom, have said, focus on the user, focus on the service. We in government have a tendency to spawn projects, spawn programs, just for the sake of it. Don't go around that. But equally, in large organizations, we can't just sort of crack on and do it the whole time. We do need that concept of projects and programs. So that's kind of the history and the things we've been testing, and we're now doing it the Agile way. The funny thing we also discovered is, as a training organization, we train Agile, but we send people away into a darkened room for months, if not years, write a book, make sure it's perfectly bound, perfectly proofread, absolutely spot on, great graphics, the exams are designed, the question design, bing, hey presto, here's your qualification. Not Agile at all, is it really? So we need to do this one Agile. We're currently in private beta. We have perfect spiral-bound books you give them to delegates saying this pictures aren't great, but they'll get better next time. Tell us how we can improve it. And that's where we are. So I'll give you a bit of feedback, some of the things we've learned and have worked well, and some things we still need to improve on there. First of all, we're talking about the wider context of projects. We're saying, yes, in an organization, you typically have a portfolio. You do have programs and projects, and we can put Agile into them. We can do GDS delivery within that context. And that seems to be going down well. Not too much to learn there. It's just quite a simple marriage. And at the Agile Business Consortium, we do have sort of Agile program management, and we'll soon have portfolio management's qualifications. Where it became a bit more interesting, and we're starting to evolve this idea, is how do we start fitting these services together? So the same guidance remains. Don't just turn it into a project for the sake of it. Don't bundle too much stuff together, but where it naturally fits together, start out. And therefore, you've got within the life cycle, you'll notice your alpha, private beta, public beta, your live stages, and your service retirement. Lock, stock, and barrel, we've adopted the GDS cycle in that section on there, and the discovery as well. But within your project framework, you're doing an amount of project discovery, but don't delay. Sort of get into those alphas, get prototyping things, get proving things as early as possible, service by service. But do a bit of that good GDS thinking into what is a service. You know, thing about nouns and verbs. Don't go sawing your car. We fell into a few of those traps at the MOJ around where we were talking about service terminology. And think about how you structure these. Where can you get started early? And where do you coordinate things? Sometimes services will have to begin at the same time or end at the same time. I mean, at a high level, you could say, it would be great. We've got sort of our high-level processes, our prosecutor case, defender case, adjudicator case. You can't exactly launch prosecutor case first and forget the defense bit. Well, some people want us to do it that way, or the other way maybe, but that kind of doesn't work, does it? So in cases like that, we've got to coordinate what comes out when and where. And that's where the, sort of the project-level coordination comes into it. And also there's governance layers. I'm not going to delve into detail, but you see various of the milestones, sort of things like SJ for service justification, PF project foundations. So putting a bit of structure. This is not formally for GDS. If you sort of have to go through the GDS gates, then this will take you through them. But equally, if you're working outside of GDS, it gives you that governance layer you need. That seems to be going down well as a good blended approach. Roles and responsibilities, still a bit of work to do on that. For those who've been on the Agile PM course, you'll have heard talk of the alien baby or the snowman. Somebody's called us the pregnant snowman, so clearly we need to do a bit more. We're trying to blend more specifically the role types, and the new part in here, which seems to be going down well, is the idea Agile PM had a business ambassador to represent the business. It was a service manager in GDS, and I'll just touch on two of these, but we felt actually the ambassador word and the business word worked quite well, but also a user ambassador. One of the pitfalls we found is it's great to have user researchers, but there's nobody really to kind of to lobby for the user at the same level. So kind of two roles, which don't have to be individual people in the current term, but they are responsibilities, people hold necessary roles to represent the user. Within that, I won't delve into more detail, but then actually delving into things like user research, user experience, kind of formalizing the job roles so we get to talk about them in the training course and discuss them as part of the exam preparation, as part of the formal training. The other side that both GDS and Agile PM a bit light on is being a bit open and talking about when and how do we set up multiple teams, how do we coordinate them. And again, that seemed to be an area that was left a bit to chance. So spending some time working out the good and bad ways of doing that has proved to be a good approach. And so again, some time built on that. We know through the private beta. So at the moment, private beta, looking to run a few more of those this year, probably going to private beta in January time and looking towards the live rollout. So we know feedback is we probably still need to do a few tweaks and changes to get these right on the team role. Work products, this initially is a simplified version of the Agile PM products that sort of give us that project overlay. Much simplified, but still didn't quite work out. In fact, we've taken it on the courses, done some user research sessions, aligned it to the new life cycle, but basically this still got the feedback, that's still too waterfally. That was a fair challenge really on there. So we're working on a revised set of the products at the moment that initially divide, similar to we had before, sort of our endeavor products. What are things related to the actual piece of work we do? Help give us some management, demonstrate control, a bit of governance. The business level products and those things that actually relate to the solution. And again, I'm not going to go into full detail of all of these, but it seemed like a much better idea to have this concept of these products more evolving, working together. And if I just pick a couple of them out, pulling out specifically a business vision we've not had before, pulling that out, thinking more particularly about the different products around our architecture definitions, but journey maps, sketches, wireframes, personas, again, getting the chance, they're really, really useful in a digital services project. And taking one step back briefly, where if Agile PM is very much about generic Agile for business change for any type of project, we started Agile down really on software development IT projects, and we moved into doing it everywhere. But actually with digital, what I'm saying is a big chunk of projects that really are hardcore technology. We need to understand that stuff. So we're not going to teach anyone to be a user researcher, but at least everyone in the project will know when we sketch, when we wireframe, when we model, when we prototype, how these things work, because that's going to be day in, day out part of your project on there. And then, various endeavor projects that help with the project management on there. So that's beginning to get into good shape now. And pulled out, again, the idea of, as I've alluded to there, the various solution work projects. So again, which things are specific to the thing we're making, and which bits the work products are about the work we're doing, the endeavor, the project. So again, that seems to be taking us down into a good place for people to talk about their concerns, their difficulties with the different types of products. The next area, and again, still a bit of work to be done on that, is around the incremental delivery, and in particular, the MVP. I won't move on to that for a second, but how many people are familiar with MVP, minimum viable product? An idea on there, which is good. So quite a lot of people are familiar with it. It's quite widely used, quite widely adopted. Came out of Eric Ries's Lean Startup on there. But I found it's caused a lot of problems. And this is, in the interest of time, there's 2 versions of this we're testing out. In fact, with hindsight, maybe I could have bought both and done some A/B testing on your user research in the room itself. But one of the problems we've identified is, in many cases, certainly where I've worked, the MVPs are still too big. We tend to be getting to a place where saying the MVP is something that's really quite big, quite useful, delivers business value, and everything else. Where the Lean Startup came out, the MVP is actually about learning. It's what's the least you can do to learn a really useful lesson, learn something really valuable. Only by learning those lessons do you then move towards the thing that's really useful, really valuable. So we're testing out 2 versions of these. This one I've got on the screen saying, in some respects, people are saying the MVP is something that's really useful, and if sufficient people are saying that's really how we understand it, then maybe we don't try and turn the tide back. I'm not sure. But then saying what we need to be aware of is the need for some investigation products, things that we do, how do we learn lessons properly, not just prototyping, modeling, how do we release stuff in our services that teaches us lessons. And then the other side is, having built up to one great big MVP, we tend to wait too long to release things. So really moving towards additional increments. In the MOJ at the moment, we've got to a place where we're now releasing software on a fortnightly basis. So every 2 weeks, new software updates, things are coming out, which is like a major change, a major move forward for them. So those would fall under additional increments. There's a separate version on there. We're saying actually one ideal would be to move back, maybe have lots of MVPs, and where it now says MVP up there, we'd say MMP, minimum marketable product. This is the thing we're prepared to put effort, money, training, etc. behind, because that's going to be the useful, valuable thing. And whichever end, I say, following on my task, we're looking at usable but learning products, things that are useful, things that are valuable. Ultimately, our goal of our lovable service on there should be something we want to aim for. So at a high level, those are the key things. We've covered the key areas, and again, we know we need a bit of work to evolve the terminology here, but it's been very well received that we need to focus on getting what the MVP is right and getting the number of increments right, because that's how we can do digital services products better. So those are bits we've looked at. Just a brief update on the timeline. So we start out in the springtime with the MOJ, Newcastle County Council, doing an alpha. It was quite fun doing this. A lot of us have had what I've called waterfall wobbles, where people have looked at a piece of the book going, oh, that's not ready, that's not good enough, we can't release that. We can't send a training course out like that. The manual actually now goes, I think I mentioned the spiral bound, but actually says the first 10 chapters are in better shape than the next 6 chapters. We're still working on them. Please give us feedback on all of them, but particularly the last 6. We know we need to work on them. And we've got some really good engagement, classic sort of alpha and beta style. So private beta is a similar model, running at the moment. The last one just about to finish. In fact, there might be a second round of private beta we're trying to schedule just before Christmas time, and looking to go live in 2018 on the final course. And just in summary, so we're doing that GDS style, in fact, in our case, Agile Digital Services style. Yes, it seems we're building the right thing. People we've spoken to say, yep, this is exactly what they want. We're now trying to fine-tune it, make sure we get it right before we actually bind up the book properly, spend money on all those flashy graphics. Let's test them out first. And final thing from yourselves really is, clearly, if people want to get involved, give us direct feedback. We're also launching this under the Creative Commons open source licensing for the first time. People get involved. But equally, we're looking to roll out a wider beta program. So if you want to get engaged early, still at a time when you can kind of change our course a bit, then if you come onto the Agile Business Consortium website, well, I think your slides are available. Make contact with me after that. Then we'd be pleased to hear from you. Thank you very much.